In today's show, we're doing another ADP battle, this time with Zak Hanshew from Rotoworld, NBC Sports Edge, and Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. You know what we're doing. We're doing an ADP battle, and this is one that I've been waiting for. It's been exciting for me scheduling this one in because there are some differing opinions that me and this guy have, and I've already told you who it is. It's Zak Hanshew. Zak, as I just forget to push up my screen. Zak, welcome back to the show.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. I've kind of had this one circled on the calendar too, man. I've heard all the Halliburton hate on your podcast. I've heard my name thrown around.
Oh yeah, every time you get thrown around, mate, you are the Halliburton guy. Even though there are others who have got him just as high as you, you are the one who I'm focusing on because I really wanted to get this show going. Now, if I remember last year, I think last time that you were on, you had this background going where you had like the metal sheet, like you were Chuck from Better Call Saul, where you're trying to block out electromagnetic radiation. We're all good now. You've got over that problem.
We're good. We actually found out there's this thing called drywall, and you can put it on your unfinished basement, and it looks so much nicer. And yeah, it's working out, I think.
Well, I hope that electromagnetic radiation didn't get into you too much over this time frame, and that's not what caused you to have Tyrese Halliburton as ranked as highly as you do. Now, in general, when we're talking ADPs, a lot of the time I'll go, you don't have to draft the guy there, you can wait. But in the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl, you were given pick 2. Randomly. I didn't give you that pick for any reason other than it just happened randomly. So you were sitting there at pick 2. Nikola Jokic went off the board at pick number 1. You were sitting there at pick 2 and you went, you know what I'm doing? I am taking Tyrese Halliburton. So I know which side you're picking. At pick 2, I'm taking Giannis in every single situation apart from a Roto League. You're taking Tyrese Halliburton. All right, I'll give you a minute or two here. Lay out your case for why you're doing this.
All right, so yes, I did take Halliburton at 2, and I do have him ranked 4th in my Rotoworld rankings this year. 2 spots behind Ryan Canales, by the way, who has him ranked 2nd.
Yep. Does Ryan have him at 2 as well? Wow, okay. I knew Ryan had him top 5. Yeah. I know he had him at 2.
Yeah. So, a lot of love over at NBC for Tyrese Haliburton. But anyway, I took him at 2nd. Obviously, I knew he wasn't coming back to me in a 12-team snake. So part of fantasy is getting your guy. So I wanted to have Haliburton. I wanted to come away and root for my guy. But this is not just me being a fanboy. I did lay out a big case for Haliburton. I wrote a 3,000-word, Unabomber style manifesto on the guy.
I was just gonna say there was a little bit of Unabomber manifesto about it, but you beat me to it. But that's fine. We all have things that we love, and 3,000 words is a fantastic article to go and read. So I encourage everyone to go read that.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. So for Haliburton, here's my thing with him is, he was top 25 player last year, top 65 as a rookie. Yep. Obviously, he's progressing. To me, he looks to have the Chris Paul trajectory. He's going to be a guy that doesn't necessarily need to have a usage rate of 30. He doesn't need to be chucking up shots, 20 shots a game. He is going to be a guy that's going to give you efficient shooting from the guard position, which is something that is highly valuable. He's going to give you an elite source of assists. I do have money on him to lead the league in assists this year. He's about the third best odds on most sports books for any bettors out there, behind Chris Paul, and I believe James Harden is who's ahead of him. And the coaching staff in Indiana right now is talking him up as the next face of the franchise, as a locked on in, 20 and 10 guy every night. And I don't think it's a far stretch for him to get there. So when he came to Indiana last year, 17 and a half points, 9.6 dimes, 1.7 steals, 4.3 rebounds. So the guy is putting up CP3 type of numbers in those, 20 couple games in Indiana. And now that he's going to be the guy, the Pacers traded away Malcolm Brogdon for peanuts to Boston, which was a great move by Boston, and even better fantasy move for Indiana for Tyrese Haliburton. The team only has one guy who's ever actually averaged 20 points a game in Buddy Hield, and those days for Buddy are long behind him. This team does not feature a plethora of scorers. This is going to be Halliburton's team, and a 20 and 10 season for him is wonderful, but you factor in the efficient shooting. You factor in potentially a small increase in rebounds. You factor in he could potentially get to 2 steals. He averaged better than 2.0 threes last year, half a block, which is for a guard, that's not insignificant at all. So you factor in all of these numbers, and he can be the next Chris Paul. And he does have some shades of DeJounte Murray, as far as he's not up to that rebounding caliber yet, but as far as his length and, potential to disrupt passes and block shots, he could certainly put up some of those defensive numbers that we love to see, that propelled DeJounte Murray to new heights last year. So he has kind of those shades of both Chris Paul and DeJounte Murray that have proven to be so valuable. And Chris Paul, back in his heyday, was a top 5 fantasy player for years and years on end. So I think that's the way we're heading with Halliburton, and I'm trying to get on that train a little bit early. I think this is the year that he does it.
I agree with a lot of that stuff. I have him comfortable as a first-round guy, like no problem whatsoever with that. Like to me, you take him 11, 12, 13 in that range. I just think that at 2, like we haven't seen him take on a big usage role and be able to maintain efficiency or be able to maintain defensive stats. And his predecessor in Indiana was a high efficiency, high defensive stats guy who got pushed into a larger offensive role in Malcolm Brogdon, and then the shooting disappeared because all the focus was on him, and the defensive stats disappeared. And Halliburton is not going to drop in those things the way that Brogdon did, I don't think. But I don't think we can necessarily go out there and say, well, all it is a matter of, well, everything stays the same and just usage goes up, because there can be things that get offset in that scenario where with that efficiency, which you are banking on, hey, he's going to get good steals and he's going to be really efficient, and it's not going to affect his free throw attempts, free throw percentage. He doesn't really get to the line at all. But if that 48 or 49 shooting is 45 because he's taking 3 extra shots and he gets the Kemba Walker in Charlotte treatment where it's like, just give Kemba the ball with 2 seconds left on the shot clock and he has to chuck it up. Like you mentioned, there's no scorers.
Right.
Like, they're going to throw it to Halliburton. And if that happens twice or 3 times a game, then 48 becomes 45. And that's where you lose a little bit of that value there. So I don't need to lay out my case for taking Giannis at 2. I've done that plenty of times, but I really just wanted to talk to you about that and get you to talk about why you're taking him that high. Again, I totally believe that Halliburton, if Halliburton slips to the second round in anyone's league, I think there's something that's gone terribly wrong. I just wouldn't go this high for it. I'd probably go highest up to 8 or 9, I think. Because I think he's in that mix with LaMelo and Trey and Lillard and Steph. I can see all those arguments. I don't think I would go this high, but that's totally fine. That's why we all have these different opinions. We've got more, another absolute fantastic one coming up in a second. We'll get to that right after this, as I tell you that BetOnline is your number 1 spot for all your football information and betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. Tyrese Haliburton plays for the Indiana Pacers, and at the moment, the Indianapolis Colts are playing a game against the Denver Broncos, so we don't need to talk about that one. We can talk about some other Week 5 action where the Cincinnati Bengals are going into Baltimore as 3.5-point underdogs. You can check that game out. The Chiefs are 7-point favorites against the Raiders. All of the odds, all of the totals, all of the spreads, all of that is up at BetOnline. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, the playoffs starting today, I think, boxing, MMA, and golf. So head to the website, betonline.net, or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. Now, you were in a mock draft I did the other day. Zach, you were one of the drafters in there, and every pick you made was either a first, second, or third round player for about your first 8 or 9 picks. Like, you're going hard on youth. I was going to say something hyper offensive, but I won't say that there. You were going really big onto the young players because we know these guys have tons of growth in them. That's just what happens. First year to second year to third year. In general, though, rookies suck. That is a general rule. But you are so big on Keegan Murray that you have taken him in the 50s. And your ranking list that you sent me had him ranked higher than his teammate, De'Aaron Fox. So pick 52. It's De'Aaron Fox. It's Keegan Murray. I don't need you to lay out all of your arguments for Keegan Murray here, but do you think that you have priced him out of any upside by looking at him in the 50s?
So for rankings, I think rankings and where you would select a guy in a draft are a little bit different. So yes, if I take him at 50, which is where I have him right now, yes, that does eliminate value. And I took him in an NBC draft earlier today with Alex McLean was on there, and he said the exact same thing that you're saying. He said, man, you've priced him out. There's no value. Where can you go from here? You're taking a guy to ceiling, which I totally get that, right? So, but do I think that taking him at 50 is a bad move? Not at all. Obviously you want to get value from somebody, but I'm also not going to pass on somebody at 50 just because I can maybe squeeze a little bit more value out of somebody else. I'm going to take somebody that I think can reach that height. And for me, that's Keegan Murray, man. I think coming out of college, he profiled obviously as an elite scorer, great defender. He's a guy that can do a number of different things on the court. As a power forward, he can shoot the three, which is excellent. He can get you a steal a game. He can get you, 1.5 threes a game. The guy can score with the best of them. He can get rebounds, and he's an efficient shooter. Now, obviously, you're right. Rookies, they might have some efficiency problems, but from what we've seen from him so far, I don't necessarily think that's going to be a huge concern right off the bat. So for me, I also think Sacramento too put a lot of faith in him, right? So they had Jaden Ivey sitting there at 4, which, if you've watched the guy play, freak athlete, right? So everybody thought, wow, Jaden Ivey's going to go number 4. And if he didn't go number 4, Sacramento had, they could have gotten a treasure trove of assets to get Jaden Ivey and trade back. But instead, unless they're just doing the Kings thing, which is fucking everything up like they always do, they took the guy that they thought would give them the best chance to succeed, and that's going to be Keegan Murray. He fits in well with that team. There's going to be a ton of opportunity, and the forward depth is Keegan and Harry B, and that's about it. I like Terrence Davis, and Trey Lyles is just a guy. So I think he's going to have every opportunity to succeed, and he can do everything on both ends of the court. I think that skill set is going to just make him the most valuable rookie this year.
Yeah, I disagree. With a lot of that, and that's absolutely fine. Last season, I don't think there was a top 50 rookie, or Barnes might have been close to it, but anyway, irrespective of the pricing out of value with taking someone like that there, I just think that we saw him at Iowa where everything was tailored to him. We saw him in Summer League where he was the only player. He at best, he's the third offensive option in Sacramento. He might be the fourth. He started behind Kazi Okpala started over him. Now, that's not going to be the case as we move forward. And I also don't think that his steal and block numbers, particularly his block numbers from college, are going to carry over. We've seen plenty of guys who get these big defensive stats in college who aren't necessarily thought of as guys who are going to necessarily do that in the NBA, like Zion Williamson and Brandon Clark, two that really stand out to me. But I don't know if those things come across. Yes, he will have some iffy nights. I think he's strong in the 80 to 90 range. I got no problem with taking him there. But I also understand it. To me, even taking him there, there's a risk associated with that, because what if he shoots 41% or something from the field, or he gets 13 and 6 and with a steal and only gets half a block or something like that. Like, we don't know how all this stuff's going to come out. And as you said, the Kings also thought that Marvin Bagley was the face of their franchise. Different general manager, same owner. So, and we know that owner has maybe a little bit of influence on a lot of stuff that happens. Oh, it's Monty's team. Yeah, sure. All right. Vivek still has his little finger in the pie there, just doing a couple little things. So I'm not ready to just say the Kings made a choice, therefore it's right. I would take Fox every day. I just think the scoring, the assists, I'm really confident that Fox is going to score more points and get more assists than Murray, and I feel pretty confident he's going to have a better field goal percentage. And the other stuff, the threes, Murray probably hits more of those, and free throws, he's probably better there. But I'm just not willing to, when there's a lot of proven guys who haven't changed situations, I'm not willing to go that high on Keegan Murray. But Zach, you have your evaluation of guys and you stick to it, and that's what it's all about. Like, if you want a guy and you think a guy's going to be this good, we're going to be wrong on so many things. Like, you're going to be wrong on things, and I'm going to be wrong on plenty of things. And that's just how stuff happens when we talk fantasy basketball. We got another rookie that we're going to talk about here, and I included this one because we're going to do pick 140, and at the end of the day, at that point of the draft, like, who gives a shit? Like, take a guy that you think's got upside. But I wanted to get your idea, because I don't know, I look at someone like, this is Jalen Suggs versus Benedict Mathurin. All right, Suggs is he the same? No, he's not quite the same sort of player as Mathurin, but he was a guard who sucked as a rookie last season, offensively. Defensively, he was really good. Mathurin, it appears from what I've heard, he's having some troubles picking up some of the NBA concepts. It looks like he's going to come off the bench to start. And pure shooting guard rookies, they are often terrible because they don't really get assists or steals or rebounds. They shoot horrible percent. Just look at Jalen Green and Anthony Edwards, two guys who are significantly better prospects than Mathurin, who were probably barely top 200 guys for 3 or 4 months of the season. And I think Mathurin, who's not going to be gifted 32, 33 minutes a night straight off. I was a little bit more interested in him earlier on, but everything that I'm hearing is just, I'm not loving it. And again, there's no issue. Take a flyer on whoever you want down here. But I just think someone like Suggs, who struggled, and Mathurin might actually have a similar struggle in his rookie season. Suggs has got that year of experience. He's got the defensive ability. He's almost definitely going to start with 2 injuries in that backcourt already. I'd just rather take a little bit more certainty of upside versus Mathurin. But can you, like, you've obviously given us the spiel on Haliburton in Indiana. Like, what's the idea for Mathurin? Because I just think these empty shooting guards as rookies are pretty tough sells to provide value for till at least like All-Star break.
So for Suggs, you're just going with the devil you know versus the devil you don't. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, well, I also think there's no way he's going to shoot 21% from 3. Like, I don't think that's going to happen again. And I feel confident in his ability.
Yeah, that was bad.
It's just not going to happen, right? Like, if it does, then he might as well retire tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I feel confident with his steals, with his assists, and his role, and second-year players. Like, I'm not saying that these are the same guys, but like, look at what Darius Garland did year 2 versus year 1. Darius Garland was one of the worst players in the NBA. Yeah. De'Aaron Fox was one of the worst players in the NBA in year 1. And there's plenty of other examples of that these guys just figure shit out to a degree in year 2, then it's even more so year 3, even more so year 4. So I'd take that flyer on Suggs, whereas rookies come in and they could be running around like headless chooks for 3 months, not knowing what they're doing and shooting 30% and averaging 10 points and just doing nothing for you.
No, I think those are all very fair points, man. Like, you made a great case there. For me, I was very excited about Suggs coming out of Gonzaga last year. Like, when I was looking at the rookies, I thought, man, Toronto is batshit crazy for taking, FSU Scotty Barnes over, Jalen Suggs, and shit, was I wrong, right? So obviously that evaluation was incorrect, but I think when you saw Suggs last year, I mean, a rookie that averages 12, 4, and 4 and 1.2 steals, those counting stats alone, there's room for encouragement. But as you mentioned, man, the percentages were they were dreadful. Like, obviously they're going to come up. It was 36% from the field, 21% from 3. Those will come up, obviously. But when we talked about Cade Cunningham struggling, he was at like 39% for 2 weeks and then a big improvement. this is Suggs in, 45, 46 games that he played last year, and 3 turnovers a game for a guy that wasn't really a super high usage guy. So all of those things alone, that really concerns me. Obviously, as you mentioned, Fultz is hurt. He doesn't need to have surgery on his toe. Cole Anthony broke out last season. They drafted Paolo Banchero, who has been surprisingly good with the ball in his hands. He's able to, run the offense. So I just don't see a scenario where Suggs is going to give me a ton of value beyond, like a late round steals guy,
Yep.
Which is who I was, we were talking about Matisse Thybulle as that last year. So to me, Suggs is kind of in that same vein, whereas Mathurin, I don't think he's going to come off the bench all season. I'm not worried about Chris Duarte. He started out hot last year, but Mathurin he was an amazing 3-point shooter in college. He does have the length and the skills to be a versatile defender in the NBA. And a 3-and-D guy is always going to find his way onto the court, even if he does struggle a little bit to begin with. So I think before long, we're going to see him starting alongside Haliburton, or, even if he doesn't, he's going to play 20-something minutes off the bench behind Chris Duarte. This is a team that when tanking last year, we had Terry Taylor as a waiver wire pickup. So Indiana can give you viable fantasy players. And to me, Mathurin is going to be one of those guys this year.
I think he will be at some point, maybe like February or March, but I'm also like, I need to see him do something that's not scoring. And yeah, he was the number 6 pick this season, but this draft was fairly weak. And like last year, he might have gone at 10 or 11 and Duarte went at 13, which was too high for Duarte. I don't like Duarte as a player, but I always end up with him in drafts because I just think he's got, again, second-year guy, a little bit of a solid role. But yeah, if you put them in the same draft class, age is a huge difference, but like in terms of overall talent, look, they might have been actually in a similar draft area. So that is going to be one for us to watch. Indiana's a very intriguing team. And then there's Zach, how much do you, just quickly, because we've got 2 more of these to go, how much do you care about all this? Oh, every team's going to be tanking for Wembanyama, so I'm not drafting anyone on the Spurs, the Pacers, the Thunder, the Magic, the Pistons, the Rockets, the Jazz. I'm never drafting anyone from those teams. Are you factoring that in?
I think if it comes down to a tiebreaker between taking a guy that is on one of those teams versus taking a guy that's not, and the choice is razor thin, sure. But otherwise, no, I'm going to take the best available player or the best player that I have in my rankings or that fits best with my team build. So no, I'm not thinking about those kind of things, because you can think a team is going to tank for, Wembanyama, and they end up coming out and looking competitive, or they actually value developing their young players. Imagine something like that. So no, it's not factoring into my decisions right now. Is that something you're taking a look at?
No, not really, because again, the Cavs were tanking last year apparently, and the Blazers were pushing for the playoffs, and then we saw that stuff reverse. The Pacers were thought to be pretty solid. The Thunder might be, but it's also if you finish with the worst record, you've got a 14% chance of getting Victor Wembanyama. It's particularly high odds. And these teams will just be bad on there. People just think that, once we hit January, that everyone's going to stop playing. And it just isn't going to happen. Yes, in April, it's going to be disgusting, right? The end of March, it's going to be pretty bad. And there's no incentive if a guy gets hurt to rush him back from injury. There's no incentive for the good teams to rush players back from injury either, because they should preserve them and get them ready for the playoffs. So what do you do? Just avoid drafting anybody, or pick only the players on teams who you think are going to be in the 7 to 9 range of the playoffs because they have to fight every game? Like, it's not a great way of going about it. And it's just an extra variable where we don't know anything about it, and things might change. And I'm with you. All right, this next one. Pick 110. Gordon Hayward, the oft-injured old man, Gordon Hayward. And you've got Patrick Williams at 110. Now, Patrick Williams, these guys are both slated to be starters. They both are probably going to play 31, 32, 33 minutes. One of them is good and one of them is Patrick Williams. So let's tell me why you think Patrick Williams, who he did have, I'll be fair, he had a couple of good games in the playoffs. He was good, but he's so, and I think the Bulls are fucking him up. I think they're messing with his head like they did with Wendell Carter, like they did with Nikola Mirotic, like they did with Larry Marketing, saying, just keep talking about him in the media, like, he's got to learn to forget the bad performances. Why is he focusing on the bad performances, which makes him focus more on them? He is so passive offensively. I'm not sure there's enough in the big defensive stats. I'm in on him as a last-round pick just to see. But even then, I'm not really convinced. Like, I just don't know if there is a good fantasy player in Patrick Williams this season.
Yeah, so at this point, I am excited about Patrick Williams just because what we saw from him at the end of last year. Obviously, we saw flashes in his rookie year. He spent most of last year injured. He came back, final 9 games of the season. He averaged 15 and 5. He scored 20 in back-to-back playoff games. When they lost to the Bucks. He looked he looked really good at the end of the year. So what can we get out of Patrick Williams? We're going to get high field goal percentage. I do think he can take the next step forward as a scorer. I do think he can be a good rebounder. We did see some double-digit rebound games out of him last year. And as you mentioned, he's a great defender. He just hasn't racked up the defensive stats that we've been looking for quite yet. I do think that can change this year. And I do think there's going to be some additional opportunities for him. Obviously, Lonzo Ball is not going to be out. How that directly impacts Patrick Williams is yet to be seen, but can he have a little bit extra bump in usage because of that? Maybe so. Can he be that next guy? Obviously he's going to be the fourth scoring option. He's going to be behind Vooch. He's going to be behind Levine and behind DeRozan. But he's not a guy that needs to score a ton of points here. And he can give you 20 points on any given night, as we've seen. My argument for him over Gordon Hayward is the durability. I mean, you mentioned he's an old man. I have nothing against drafting an old man team. I know I'm like the anti-Dan Besbris here, but in this case, after that gruesome knee injury in Boston, very, season opener, with his leg, his last 3 seasons, actually he came back the next year. I think he played 70, 71, 72 games, something like that. And the last 3 seasons, it's been 52, 44, 49. He's now opening the season dealing with a knee bruise. He could be a top 75 guy. The numbers are there for him to do so. But am I really going to count on him being on the court? And can I even count on him playing 45 games this year? I don't think that's going to happen.
45? You don't think you can get to 45? I think Gordon Hayward, can get to top 70 per game. I think Patrick Williams can get to top 120 per game. So we'll just take that upside when we're talking round 10, round 11. I just think Hayward's got way more in what he's able to do, especially with Miles Bridges not there. And even if he gets hurt at that point, I just think the upside value of taking someone there at that stage who might give me top 70 numbers, if somehow, as you said, he came off a severe injury and played a lot of games, right? If he gets me 65 games, I feel like I smashed that point. Best case scenario for Williams, he needs maybe 2 guys to get hurt on the Bulls. Maybe he needs Levine to miss time or Vooch to miss time. I don't know. I just don't. I don't see the upside in him. Maybe it comes. It is year 3 and we see players take steps forward there. But maybe it comes. Maybe it doesn't. Last one is I really want to get your opinions because I've seen this guy ranked high in places. Not with me because I don't think he's very good. We're at pick 100. We've got 2 centers. It's Clint Capela and Mo Bamba. Now, Capela played fewer minutes than Onyeka Okongwu today. I think that's preseason, and Capela is going to start. But Okongwu will eat in a little bit. I don't think Mo Bamba is a very good basketball player. I don't think Mo Bamba is going to play those power forward minutes that he did last season. I think he's going to strictly be a backup to Wendell Carter Jr. Maybe he plays 1 or 2 minutes there. I don't see... What's the justification for taking him this early? What role do you think he's going to play that pushes him into this area?
Yeah, so I understand the concern about him. Obviously, last year it was him and, Wendell Carter Jr. They played in tandem for most of the season. With Paolo Banchero there, obviously Bamba. Oh, excuse me, man.
It's all right, mate. We all lose our voice at times.
Excuse me, man. Anyway, with Banchero there, I really don't think, as you mentioned, Bamba is going to, he's not going to start. He's going to come off the bench, but he played 26 minutes per game last year, 16 the year before that. He's not going to get back up to 26 minutes this year.
No, there's no way.
We can split. No way. We can split the difference at 21 or 22 minutes because I think it's reasonable to think that he can get that, especially after signing a new 2-year deal. And he doesn't need he doesn't need to be on the court for 25 minutes to return top 100 value. Obviously, he can get you blocks, he can get you threes, he can get you enough rebounds, field goal percentage to be that top 100 guy. So that's why I'm looking at him here. And Capela, I'm scared shitless of Okongwu coming in and taking all those minutes from him because, yeah, I mean, to end the season last year, it was a near even split. I think they were each playing around 25 minutes a game, or there's some variance of that. So Capela last year, it was his worst fantasy finish in, I think, since his rookie season, if I'm remembering correctly. So I think it's a downward trend for him. And Bamba is a guy that I just like, for the additional skills that he brings as far as the threes. And he's not a bad free throw shooter either. Mo Bamba isn't, especially for a big man. So I think if your team build allows it, Bamba's the guy for me.
I just don't think he's good. And I think with the addition of Banchero, the alleged return of Jonathan Isaac, I'm not really counting on that one though, but the fact that there isn't those minutes available, I don't think that he is good enough to even play. Like, I don't think you ever want to take Wendell Carter off the floor to get Bamba on there. I think his defense at center sucks. Yeah. He does block shots, and that's really useful for fantasy. He does hit threes, but Mosley, the coach, he's not playing fantasy. He doesn't care if Bamba blocks shots if he just lets everyone else waltz past him most of that time. And you got to find minutes or ways to get a KK onto the court as well. Isaac there, if he actually plays, which I don't think he does at any point soon. But if he does, that further complicates things because that means there's basically 0 power forward minutes available. So it just has to all be Bamba and Bamba and Carter. And you're worried about Capela and Okongwu coming for his minutes. That's true. Right, but where does Bamba's in the position where you fear that Capela might end up at some point? Like he's in that spot. He is in the limited minutes role with someone better clearly ahead of him. Whereas Capela's in the starting role. He's in that box seat at the moment, and maybe he does lose minutes as the season goes on. But he's in that seat at the moment. Whereas Bamba, I find it very hard to see how he pushes into that role later on. But again, as for some reason everything has frozen up on my screen, and I will hope that I can get that back going. I don't know. It's just me that's frozen, looking absolutely ridiculous. Zach, I'm going to pause this, and then we'll come back and end this up because I don't like how my face looks. All right, so I am unfrozen, as you can see, and I'll come here to tell you that we're done. Thank you, Zach, for coming on and discussing your thoughts on players. Again, no one knows how this stuff's going to work out. We can have our reasoning for things, and it puts players in different positions, and we will go into drafts with different ideas. And Zach's got some different ideas, and we wanted to get them out there and throw them around and get him a chance to discuss his thoughts. And I thought it was great. Zach, thank you for coming on. Tell us what you've got coming up at the moment, and where people can find you.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, man. It's always a pleasure. Glad I got to come back on. Working at NBC Sports Edge, as you know. I do have the Halliburton Manifesto out. We have our draft guide out. And this season, I will be running a weekly article called Zaks Facts. It's going to be a deep dive into notable statistics for the Fantasy Basketball Week, along with some actionable advice. So make sure to check that out.
Go and check out Zak's social media and all the stuff he does at Rotoworld, NBC Sports Edge. Zak, thanks for coming back on the show.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
And that will do it for me today. Don't forget to follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app. If you're on YouTube, you thumb it up, you leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.